Alcatraz gang tried to kill Bumpy Johnson in the yard. Only one walked out alive, with this message. June 3, 1954, 2:17 p.m. The recreation yard at Alcatraz Federal Penitentiary. Bumpy Johnson was playing dominoes with a lifer named Chester when he saw them coming. 5 men, the Aryan Brotherhood's most violent enforcers, led by a psychopath named Carl the Butcher Schneider. They weren't trying to hide it. They were walking straight toward him, hands in their pockets, murder in their eyes. The entire yard went silent. 200 inmates stopped what they were doing. Everyone knew what was about to happen. The Aryan Brotherhood had put a hit on Bumpy Johnson. And in Alcatraz, when the AB wanted you dead, you died. Except Bumpy Johnson wasn't most men. He looked up from his dominoes, made eye contact with Carl Schneider, and did something nobody expected. He smiled. Then he said 7 words that would echo through Alcatraz for the next decade. Tell them I said you tried. What happened in the next 4 minutes wasn't just a fight. It was a masterclass in prison politics, strategic violence, and why Bumpy Johnson was the most feared man in the American prison system. But to understand what happened in that yard, you need to understand how Bumpy ended up in Alcatraz in the first place. Bumpy Johnson arrived at Alcatraz in 1951. He'd been transferred from Sing Sing after what the warden called repeated incidents of insubordination and violence. Translation: Bumpy had been running Sing Sing like his personal kingdom, and the authorities couldn't control him. So they sent him to the Rock Alcatraz, the prison designed to break the unbreakable, the place where Al Capone had his spirit crushed, where Machine Gun Kelly became a shell of himself, where the toughest criminals in America learned what real punishment felt like. The warden at Alcatraz, a man named Paul Madigan, had a reputation. He didn't tolerate gang activity. He didn't tolerate violence. He ran the tightest ship in the federal prison system. When Bumpy arrived, Warden Madigan called him into his office. I know who you are, Johnson. I know what you did in Harlem. I know what you did at Sing Sing. But let me make something clear. This isn't Harlem. This isn't Sing Sing. This is Alcatraz. And in Alcatraz, you're nobody. You follow the rules, you do your time, you go home. You cause problems, you'll wish you were dead. Do we understand each other? Bumpy looked at the warden for a long moment. Then he said something that made Madigan's blood run cold. Warden, with all due respect, you don't know who I am. You know my reputation, but you don't know me. And before my time here is done, you will. The first month, Bumpy kept his head down. He observed, he watched. He learned the ecosystem of Alcatraz. And what he learned was this. Alcatraz wasn't controlled by the guards. It was controlled by 3 gangs. The Aryan Brotherhood, led by Carl Schneider. White supremacists, violent, organized. They controlled the laundry and the workshop. The Mexican Mafia, led by a man called Flaco. They controlled the kitchen. And the Italians, remnants of the old mob families. They controlled the library and the commissary. The black inmates, they had nothing. They were at the bottom of the hierarchy, targets, victims, powerless. Bumpy saw this and he made a decision. He was going to change it. But he wasn't going to do it through violence. Not yet. He was going to do it through economics. In prison, currency isn't money. It's cigarettes, favors, information, and protection. Bumpy started small. He noticed that the Mexican Mafia controlled the kitchen, but they had a problem. They were getting shorted on their meat deliveries. Someone in the supply chain was skimming. The Mexicans didn't know who. Bumpy found out in 3 days. A guard named Sullivan was selling the meat on the black market in San Francisco. Bumpy went to Flaco with the information. I know who's stealing from you. Flaco was suspicious. Why would you tell me? Because I want something in return. What? Access to the kitchen, 1 hour a week. I want to cook for my people. Flaco laughed. That's it? That's it? Deal. Within a month, Bumpy was cooking Sunday dinners for the black inmates. Real food. Fried chicken, collard greens, cornbread. Food that reminded them of home. Food that gave them dignity. And while they ate, Bumpy talked. He organized. He built loyalty. He created structure. Next, he went to the Italians. The Italians had a problem too. They were getting harassed by the Aryan Brotherhood. The AB wanted a cut of the commissary profits. The Italians didn't want to pay. Bumpy went to their leader, a man named Sal Vitale. "I can make your AB problem disappear." Sal was skeptical. "How?" "You let me worry about that." "What do you want?" "I want access to the library. I want to teach my guys to read." Sal thought about it. "If you can get the AB off our backs, you can have the whole damn library done." Now Bumpy had access to the kitchen and the library. He was building power, but he hadn't confronted the real threat yet, the Aryan Brotherhood. Carl Schneider ran the AB with an iron fist. He was 6'5", 240 pounds of muscle and hate. He'd killed 3 men in prison, all with his bare hands. He'd never been convicted because nobody would testify. He was untouchable, and he hated Bumpy Johnson. Not because Bumpy had done anything to him, but because Bumpy was black and Bumpy was gaining power. And in Carl's world, that was unacceptable. Carl started small. He had his guys rough up one of Bumpy's associates in the shower, broke his arm, message sent. Bumpy didn't retaliate. He sent a message back. He had one of his guys leave a note in Carl's cell. That was a mistake. You'll understand soon. Carl was furious. Who the hell did this guy think he was? He called a meeting with his top enforcers. "We're going to kill him. In the yard. Friday. All 5 of us. We make it public. We make it brutal. We send a message to every black inmate in this place. They're nothing." One of his guys, a man named Dutch, asked the obvious question. "What about the guards?" Carl smiled. "The guards don't care. As long as we don't kill him instantly, as long as it looks like a fight, they'll let it play out for a minute or two. That's all we need." What Carl didn't know was that Bumpy had already heard about the plan. Because Bumpy had done something nobody expected. He'd recruited a guard, not through bribery, through respect. Officer Marcus Webb was one of 3 black guards at Alcatraz. He'd been passed over for promotion 3 times. He'd been harassed by his fellow officers. He'd been treated like he didn't belong. Bumpy had noticed. One day in the yard, Bumpy approached him. "Officer Webb, can I ask you something?" Webb was immediately defensive. Why do you do this job?" Webb was taken aback. "What kind of question is that? A real one. You're smart. You're disciplined. You could do anything. Why work in a place where they don't respect you?" Webb didn't answer right away. Then he said quietly, "Because somebody has to. Somebody has to show them we belong everywhere, even here." Bumpy nodded. "I respect that. And I want you to know if you ever need anything. Anything at all, you let me know." Webb was confused. "Why would you help me?" "Because we're fighting the same fight, just on different sides of these bars." 3 weeks later, Officer Webb came to Bumpy during yard time. He looked nervous. "There's a hit on you Friday, 5 AB guys, led by Schneider." Bumpy didn't look surprised. "I know." Webb was shocked. "You know? Then why are you still here? Why haven't you requested protective custody? Because that's not how this works. If I run, I lose everything I've built. Every black man in this place loses. So what are you going to do?" Bumpy looked at him. "I'm going to teach them a lesson." "How?" "You'll see. Just make sure the guards don't intervene too quickly. I need 4 minutes." Webb stared at him. 4 minutes, that's all I need." Friday, June 3rd, 1954. Recreation Yard. 2:15 p.m. Bumpy was playing dominoes with Chester. He'd positioned himself in the center of the yard. Open space, nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. At 2:17, Carl Schneider and his 4 enforcers started walking toward him. The yard went silent. Bumpy looked up, saw them coming, and smiled. Then he said it. "Tell them I said you tried." Carl's face twisted with rage. "You're a dead man." Bumpy stood up slowly. He was 5'9", 170 pounds. Carl was 65, 240. The 4 other AB members fanned out, surrounding him. This should have been a massacre. It wasn't. What nobody knew, what Carl Schneider couldn't have known, was that Bumpy Johnson had been preparing for this moment for 3 years. Not just physically, strategically. Carl threw the first punch, a massive right hook aimed at Bumpy's head. Bumpy didn't try to block it. He moved, 6 inches to the left. The punch missed. Carl's momentum carried him forward. Bumpy drove his elbow into Carl's kidney. A precise strike. Carl gasped. Before he could recover, Bumpy swept his leg. Carl went down hard. The other 4 rushed in. This was the moment. 4-on-1. Bumpy should have been overwhelmed. But something happened that nobody expected. The black inmates moved, not all of them, just 12. 12 men that Bumpy had been training in the library, teaching, organizing, preparing. They didn't attack, they formed a circle, a barrier, blocking the other AB members from joining, creating a one-on-one fight. Bumpy versus Carl. Carl got to his feet, breathing hard. He pulled a shiv from his pocket, a 6-inch blade made from a sharpened spoon. Now the guards should have intervened. Weapons meant lockdown, but Officer Webb, standing at his post, didn't move. Not yet. 4 minutes. Carl lunged with the shiv. Bumpy sidestepped, grabbed Carl's wrist and twisted. The shiv clattered to the ground. Then Bumpy did something brutal. He didn't just fight Carl, he dismantled him. A punch to the solar plexus. Carl doubled over. A knee to the face. Carl's nose shattered. Blood everywhere. An elbow to the temple. Carl staggered. And then Bumpy whispered something in Carl's ear. Something only Carl could hear. This is the message. You tell the AB. You tell the Italians. You tell the Mexicans. Alcatraz belongs to all of us now, or it belongs to none of us, your choice. Then Bumpy stepped back. Carl was on his knees, blood pouring from his face. Broken, humiliated, defeated. The 4 other AB members tried to rush in, but Bumpy's 12 held the line. Not fighting, just blocking, creating space. Officer Webb blew his whistle. Guards rushed in. The yard erupted into controlled chaos. Bumpy put his hands up immediately. No resistance. He was tackled, cuffed, dragged to solitary confinement. Carl was taken to the infirmary. The other AB members were rounded up. The yard was locked down. Bumpy spent 30 days in solitary. No light, no human contact, just darkness and silence. Most men broke in solitary. Bumpy used it to think, to plan, to prepare for what came next. When he was released, he expected retaliation. He expected the AB to come back harder. But something had changed. Carl Schneider requested a transfer. He told the warden he couldn't do his time at Alcatraz anymore. The warden was shocked. Carl had been at Alcatraz for 8 years. He ran the most powerful gang on the rock. And now he wanted out? What happened in that yard? Carl wouldn't say. He just repeated, "I need a transfer." The warden approved it. Carl was sent to Leavenworth. He never spoke about what Bumpy whispered to him that day. But the other inmates knew. The message was clear. After Carl left, the power structure at Alcatraz shifted. The Aryan Brotherhood didn't collapse, but they didn't dominate anymore. The black inmates had organization. They had structure. They had Bumpy. The Mexicans and Italians saw what happened. They saw that Bumpy didn't want to take over. He wanted balance. He wanted respect. Within 6 months, Bumpy had negotiated a peace treaty between all 4 groups. The kitchen, the laundry, the workshop, the library, everything was shared. Profits were split. Disputes were mediated. Violence dropped by 60% in 1 year. Warden Madigan called Bumpy into his office. "I don't know what you did, Johnson, but this prison is running smoother than it has in a decade. I should hate you for it, but I don't." Bumpy nodded. "I told you, Warden, you didn't know who I was. Now you do." Bumpy served the rest of his sentence at Alcatraz without incident. He was released in 1963. When he walked out of that prison, he left behind something nobody expected. A system, a structure, a code. The inmates called it the Johnson Protocol. Respect over violence, economics over chaos, unity over division. It lasted for 3 years after he left, until Alcatraz closed in 1963, but the legend lived forever. So what happened to Carl Schneider? He spent the rest of his life in Leavenworth. He never regained his power. He never spoke about Bumpy Johnson, but other inmates said he had nightmares, that he'd wake up screaming, that he'd mumble the same thing over and over. He knew. He knew everything. What did Bumpy whisper to Carl that day in the yard? Nobody knows for sure, but there's a theory, a rumor that spread through the prison system for decades. They say Bumpy told Carl this. "I know about your brother. I know about the deal you made. I know about the money you stole. And if you ever come at me again, everyone will know. You'll lose everything, your reputation, your protection, your life." Whether that's true or not, we'll never know, but what we do know is this. Carl Schneider, the most feared man in Alcatraz, walked into that yard with 5 men. And only one walked out with a message. The message was simple. You can't kill a man who's already 3 steps ahead. You can't break a man who's built something bigger than himself. And you can't win a war when your enemy knows your secrets. Bumpy Johnson proved something that day in the Alcatraz yard. Power isn't about size. It's not about violence. It's not about fear. Real power is about preparation. It's about knowing your enemy better than they know themselves. It's about building loyalty that can't be bought or broken. And it's about sending a message so clear, so devastating, that your enemies would rather run than fight. Carl Schneider learned that lesson the hard way, and every inmate in Alcatraz learned it too. Bumpy Johnson wasn't just a gangster. He was a strategist, a leader, a legend. And that day in the yard he proved why. Look, if this story got you fired up, do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you're not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? We're dropping these Bumpy Johnson stories every single day, and trust me, the next one is even crazier. Drop a comment and let me know, what do you think Bumpy whispered to Carl? What was the secret that broke him? And hey, turn on those notifications, because next week we're telling the story of how Bumpy Johnson walked into a room with 5 mob bosses and walked out owning half of Harlem. You don't want to miss that. Remember, in the prison system, respect isn't given. It's earned. And Bumpy Johnson earned his every single day.